Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I am your host, DJMaverick. Today, we are rolling out the red carpet once again. We have Law Enforcement Officer Melissa Medrano on the pod. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm super excited. So you're repping Las Cruces, Nuevo Mexico, New Mexico,
Yes.
with a bachelor's in foreign languages, a minor in Chicano studies, and you're working on a master's.
Yes, I'm
Right.
doing criminal justice.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. For the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, just give us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Las Cruces, and then, it's totally different from Oklahoma.
I'm sure.
obviously.
Yeah.
But when I came here, I wasn't used to tornadoes. That's the only thing that freaked me out.
Okay.
But everything else is great. So I have my bachelor's in foreign languages. I specialize in Spanish and Portuguese linguistics.
Oh, cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after college, my first professional job was at a sheriff's department, and I kind of just did I was a transcriptionist. Pretty much, I was helping the detectives.
Okay. So
Transcribe
you were like in office?
in office. Yeah.
Okay.
In the office. Pretty much, my job was to record the victim and suspect interviews, as well as the child forensics. So
Okay.
like anything sexual crimes against children, I would record it and put it on an official format for them to submit.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, if we were to rewind back, young Melissa, what would she, if I would ask her, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would have been the answer?
Definitely not a cop.
Not a cop.
Yeah, not a cop.
What would have been, you think?
I think I was always drawn to science stuff or language, writing.
Okay.
I used to write a lot. I used to do poetry. Just different. I was a weird kid. I would write out scripts for plays.
Oh, okay. So you were super into arts and
Yeah.
plays and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think at one point I want to be a marine biologist, but
Okay.
Las Cruces.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of close.
I
It's
think
closer
every
than
kid
Oklahoma.
wants to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I didn't have something specific I wanted to be.
Okay.
I just really was drawn to different sciences, investigation stuff. As I got older, obviously, the more I was drawn to crime shows and stuff.
Why do you think that is? I feel like a lot of the women guests that have been on the podcast, they're into the crime podcasts, all those shows. Tell me, I don't know what that is.
I have no idea. I just like figuring people out and, investigating something, trying to find the clues and all that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of psychology behind it, too, so.
definitely. So at what point did you decide you wanted to go into law enforcement? Was it in college? Was it in high school?
It was after my professional job at the sheriff's department.
Okay.
So, just listening to all the victim interviews and then the way the detectives handled each and every interview, the way they cared about the victims, trying to close the case, trying to find the evidence.
Yeah.
And then just listening to the children, that was a big, ugh.
Yeah, that's tough, right?
Yeah. So at one point I was like, well, I want to do more besides just being in an office, So I decided I wanted to do local law enforcement.
Okay.
And that's when I kind of started applying, getting in shape. I might have failed a few physical tests.
Tell me a little bit about that. What's that process is like? Okay, so you decide you want to go into law enforcement. You got to sign up to the academy. Do you have to make a certain thing before you can even be a part of the academy? How does that work?
Yeah, so usually the first thing is the application process. Submit it online or whatever agency. If it's in person application,
Okay.
it's usually a thick packet with pretty much all your background, all your places you worked at.
Is there an age requirement? You have to be a certain age, but not older than a certain age?
Yeah, some states, depending on the pension system, they have a age requirement.
Okay.
I believe Oklahoma's 45 is the limit, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so once you do that, you get, usually the next step is the physical portion, because you lose a lot of people in that.
I bet. Yeah,
Selection
I would be out. I would be
Yeah.
out there.
So
do you get a redo, or do you have to be in shape before even you qualify to be a part of it?
You have to meet their standard, their agency physical standard or whatever. It can vary. I know New Mexico was, you had to do the mile under a certain time. You had to do this under a certain time, and they weren't too flexible on male, female. I believe I can't remember, but Some agencies base it on female times, male times, do
Okay.
a couple of adjustments, push-ups, sit-ups, the basic. Usually it involves a run, either a mile and a half run or 2-mile run.
Okay. And it's timed, I bet?
It's timed, yeah.
Okay.
And a sprint.
Okay.
And it's all on the same day. And usually after that, they do like either a written test and a math test.
Okay.
So you have to pass all that the same day.
So everything happens the same day, and then you qualify to be part of the academy, and then it goes on for several weeks, or what?
No. So after you pass the physical and in the background, the agency is doing your background investigation as well.
Okay.
So if you qualified for the physical, you passed, and then you passed the test, written, mathematics, whatever they issue.
Okay.
Then you go on to do a psychological evaluation. You have to pass that.
Okay.
Then you pass a polygraph.
Jeez. All right.
And those are based on the questions in your background packet. So if you lie
okay.
or if you kind of minimize stuff, it's
Yeah.
going to show up on your polygraph.
Okay. Got it.
So along the way, the process is anywhere from like 6 months to a year in the selection, I guess.
And along the way, is there still physical training that happens during that, or is it kind of just a waiting period until you get approved?
Some agencies, like the one that I failed in New Mexico, I had passed the first time. And then since I was already working for that agency, they didn't want to like switch me to that position as a cadet to try to save money. They were kind of being cheap.
Okay.
But so my academy mates started before I did. And they were kind of just doing odd jobs, but they had the chance of doing the PT every morning.
Okay.
So at the end of it, right before the academy, they tested you again, and I failed the run by 10 seconds.
Oh, man,
Yeah.
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Jeez, that's tough.
And they were like, well,
Yeah.
see ya, you failed. And
For 10 seconds?
Yeah, 10
There
seconds.
wasn't no redo, hey.
No.
No.
I think they allowed me to redo that same day after I already was exhausted and, had already ran.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there's no way I was going to pass it again.
What would you say was the most challenging part of that whole process?
For me and most females, is the push-ups.
Push-ups,
Like upper
okay.
body strength. So you have to really work on that.
How many push-ups are you required to do?
It depends on the agency, but I think the one I did here in Oklahoma was like 35
Okay.
under
would
a minute.
fail.
In a minute.
In a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So that was kind of like the most challenging. What were you doing? Were you like sort of practicing or getting yourself into shape
Yeah.
prior to that, or what?
Yeah, I was trying to do at least 10 push-ups per day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there also a driving aspect to it, or is that later down the road?
So yeah, this is just the initial hiring process. Once
Okay.
you get offered like a spot, then you have to go through the academy, which is about 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's a whole other classroom,
Got
like exams, firearms, all that other driving stuff.
it. Okay.
Pretty much all the other stuff. You get tased, get pepper sprayed.
All right. You can't just like slip that in. So tell me a little bit about
Oh,
that.
no.
So I guess you have to get tased because they want you to feel like what it feels like to get tased, so you know kind of what to expect, or what's
Yeah, so pretty
Yeah.
much it's like whenever you tase somebody, you have to go to court and testify. I tased them because of this reason, and
Yeah.
I know for a fact that it's supposed to like kind of incapacitate you
Sure.
for a couple seconds,
Okay.
and you're supposed to feel the way, so you know that the body is still capable. And it doesn't work for everybody. So
Yeah.
some people it works, some people it just does like a minor, like stops them for a little bit, but they could still move throughout the tasing. So
Okay. What was that like for you? Did it work on
no.
you?
Oh, it worked on me.
It worked on
It
you?
worked on me.
What happened?
So usually the instructor will ask for volunteers, and no one is like, everyone's just like
Next.
volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what
to
about
go. I think whoever volunteers is seen like the top, like
Yeah.
the badass of the class.
Yeah.
But I think I waited for my turn. Whoever said it's your turn next, whatever, and they usually tell you to relax your body. 'Cause
Sure.
You're gonna,
Yeah. Relax.
You don't
We're
want to
about
be tense
taste-
already on top of being more tense.
Yeah.
Because it pretty much like your whole body will go like.
I've never
super-
been tased. What does it feel
So
like?
it contracts every muscle
Okay.
in your body.
So you're like kind of real stiff, and you can't really like
Yeah.
control or move your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it also depends on like your weight and stuff. for like smaller people or like petite, like that don't have as much body fat, it works way better.
Okay. All right.
Just like,
Yeah, man,
it
that
also
sounds tough.
depends where you get hit. So usually you try to do a bigger span on the body. So mine worked. It was like the weirdest experience because I felt the pain immediately, but I also saw like flashing lights, like electricity running through my body.
Geez, okay.
It was weird.
Yeah. Did you
I think
like
my just
fall?
me and you fall.
You fall?
You
Okay.
fall. So you have two classmates holding you
Okay.
to prevent any like serious injuries. It's done on a mat, and they record it for the court purposes, I guess, or whatever that you were trained in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks. It's like 5 minutes of the worst pain.
It's 5 minutes?
I mean, sorry, 5 seconds.
Oh,
I don't know
I was
why.
like,
It
5
feels
minutes.
like 5
bet,
minutes.
It feels like 5 minutes.
It feels like 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. And then you also, I guess, get like firearm training, car, all that stuff,
driving
right?
and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What would you say? So we talked about kind of like some of the most challenging, difficult. What was like some of the more fun, like things that you enjoyed?
Probably the driving course. Like you
Okay.
do simulate a pursuit. What else? Oh, we also part of the physical training. It's called defensive tactics.
Okay.
You have to fight your instructor for that one was I believe 3 minutes.
Oh wow. Okay.
And he's in a suit. He's like so it's called a 3-minute gauntlet. You go through rounds of instructors. You have to fight them. And
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
So
Okay. Cool. So like you got through that. At any point were you like, okay, maybe I need to rethink this. Maybe law enforcement isn't for me, or like through the whole process, you're
no.
like, I got this. No big deal.
It wasn't. The hardest part for me was being from out of state.
Okay.
Like didn't have any friends, didn't know. Also the streets, like getting reoriented. Like, for me, back home, south is the border.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's like south is the border.
Yeah.
You already know the south is El Paso, the border, Juarez.
Yeah.
That was a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Is learning the geography.
Do you remember sort of like when you graduated, like at that specific point where you're like, okay, I've got this, or were you still nervous because you knew like, okay, like now comes the real challenge?
So usually after you graduate the academy, you do what's called the FTO program, the field training program.
Okay.
So you have a field trainer with you
Got it. Okay.
for like a month or so, sometimes longer. It depends on your training,
Okay.
So
Cool.
on mine, my struggles were the geography.
Along the way, I'm sure you had like other jobs, you were doing other stuff, going through college. Like what sort of jobs did you have, or did you experiment with like going through other career paths or anything like
Yeah,
that?
so part of the my linguist with my bachelor's, I also got contracted through the DEA and FBI to do like cases
Cool.
for them.
Okay.
So it's pretty much like as a linguist. So part of that is, I know it sounds like when the government's listening on you. That's me listening.
That's you?
Yeah,
All right.
that's me.
All right.
That's me. Yeah, we have all kinds of linguists that like mine. My primary obviously is Spanish,
Sure.
but there's other cases like Farsi, Arabic. All those interpreters get paid a whole lot more.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So there's a very like different cases that
Yeah.
we can work on. So that's how I came to Oklahoma, as I did travel assignments. I worked in like El Paso, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, San Antonio office, like different offices.
Okay.
And I kind of just got recruited here. I mentioned to somebody at the office, they're like, hey, well, I was thinking of going into local law enforcement. What do you think? They're like, oh, we're hiring. And then the other agency, oh, we're hiring.
Oh, really?
So they were trying to recruit
Okay.
me, and that's how I came here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think you were mentioning that there's a shortage of like bilingual officers, right? So they call
Yeah.
on you pretty often. It sounds like.
And yeah. So I get a lot of the extra calls, extra duties.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is also fun because you get to see the Hispanic community, and their needs are kind of sometimes different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lately, well, it's I don't know if it's calmed down, but lately there was a lot of like, trouble going on with law enforcement and everything going on, all the craziness in the world. Did you get impacted by any of that, or were you okay? Or
Yeah, I think everyone nationwide got impacted by that. It just kind of depends the city you work for, and if you get the support from your, administration and stuff.
Yeah.
And from the citizens, it just kind of depends on the relationship.
Okay.
So for us, like I'm lucky that my department has like citizen police academies and like puts out information to inform the citizens. Like, this is why we do stuff. This is why we do
Okay.
certain things this way, you know.
And you're probably involved with like youth type events and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, we have a junior police academy as well.
Okay.
We try to put out like as much, you know, community engagement events that we can. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Would you say that kind of is what prevents stuff from maybe escalating because you become part of the community? You kind of know, like, you know, people around the community, or what would you say is the most important piece there?
Yeah, I think being like proactive as police officers, and then just getting on foot patrol sometimes. Like everybody has a car, because back in the day it'd be more like foot patrol. Like you would know the people that live there. You know, like, hey, you know, walking by.
Yeah.
And now that's kind of like, well, everyone has a car. We're just patrolling in our car, right?
Yeah.
So we still try to go out and do like meet the people at the hotels, the business owners. You know, every call we get, like you get to meet the people that are, you know, requesting our help, and sometimes it's frequent flyers, so you get to know them on a personal basis.
Oh, wow.
like there's
probably not the way that you want to meet
probably
somebody,
not.
right?
I'm like, hey, wasn't that your ex-husband or like your boyfriend?
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
So do you think that by doing that, being part of the community, have you been able to avoid any crazy stories, or have there been some crazy stories where it's been, you know, pretty, I guess, difficult or maybe dangerous at times?
Yeah, there's always crazy stories. You just give me a like category, I can give you a crazy story.
So I guess have you ever like having to like get in a physical fight with somebody, or?
Yeah, there's been a few. The one that is like kind of like really sticks with me is the one like right after we graduated the field training program. You're on your own.
Yeah.
So you're by yourself. No one's like, you know, watching you, supervising you or whatever. Get your own car, handle your own calls. So normally, like the domestics, assaults, all that stuff, it gets 2 officers.
Okay.
So I remember that specific call. It wasn't even mine. I was what you call a backing officer. So I was the neighboring district, and I go back the officer. So it was a domestic between an adult son and his elderly mother in the garage. He was throwing stuff, breaking stuff.
Yeah.
And that officer actually was in the academy with me. So it was we were still kind of new. We were fresh out of the program.
Both of you guys are new.
Yes.
Okay.
We were fresh out of the program. And he is first on scene. And then as soon as I get there, I see him, but he's doing like the boxing stance, like, you know, following this guy around.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things they taught us is like to control, kind of like don't let the suspect control your movements. Like you tell them to sit down, or, you know, you try to control them, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking like, what in the world is going on? Yeah, what is going on?
Yeah.
So as soon as like I walk up closer, I'm like, oh, that's why. Like the guy is like off the walls, like crazy, like babbling nonsense, like not even in reality. Like he's just, you know,
he's probably on
stuff.
Drugs or something.
Yeah, that's what we thought initially. But the mom was saying, oh, my son's got mental problems, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Yeah.
He needs help, kind of is what she didn't want us to go the criminal route that he just like, you know, broke the stuff, property, whatever.
Yeah.
So she wanted to get him help.
Okay.
So I was wondering like why he, you know, the other officer was letting him just roam around, and so he was kind of making time, just kind of making sure he didn't go on the street or whatever.
Just trying to like make time for you to arrive to back up.
Yeah, and at the same time to have the mother, she's filling out what we call a third-party statement, so to take somebody into protective custody for like a mental health eval.
Okay.
So we were waiting on her to fill it out, and then this was probably my mistake because I told him this guy. Okay, part of the story is this guy looks like a football player. He's huge.
Great. Of course.
He's huge.
Of course.
And I tell my partner, I'm like, hey, we're gonna have to go hands on with this guy because like there's no way he's gonna go freely with us, you know. Mm-hmm. So he's like, yeah, I know. So we're just waiting for the right opportunity. And at one point, this guy, he's all over the place rambling. He looks over to me and he makes eye contact with me.
Okay.
So he looks at me and I'm like, oh, maybe he's with us now, you know? So instead of me, you know, I don't know why, he asked me, do you know Bobby? Like, he asked me some random question. Do you know this person?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. You're not supposed to play into their fantasies, but I don't know why I did. I said, yeah, I do. You want to come have a seat? And tell me about him.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. Oh, and me and my officer looked at each other. We're like, oh, might be easy. He's going to sit down. We can just handcuff him there. He's lower than us. It's not going to be a big,
Hopefully
struggle.
you're de-escalating the situation at that point, right?
He's sitting down. It's harder for him to fight, run, etc. So as he's sitting down, he looks at me again. He's like, no, I know what you're doing. You're trying to kill me. You're the temptress from Egypt. And his fantasy went from 0 to 100 that I was trying to kill him. He starts stripping down his clothes. This was in the middle of winter. He starts stripping down his clothes completely. And then the other officer's like, oh my God, no, sir, please, no, don't take your pants off. We're still new. We don't know what to do. Right. We're like, oh my God. And it's in the middle of the street. So we're like, he's like, no, sir, don't take off your pants.
Was it middle of the day or middle of the night?
It was in the night. It was in the night.
All right.
It was wintertime. We had like 3-4 layers, our winter coats.
Yeah.
He just starts stripping down, middle of the street, and we're like, no, and he doesn't listen to us. He's like, no, you're trying to kill me. See, I don't have anything. I don't have any weapons. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Strips down everything.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And then starts thinking that we're after him. Like he starts getting paranoid that we're trying to hurt him or whatever. So then now I tell him, like, now we really have to go hands on because this guy is like running down the street naked, like being loud and just, he's either going to get hit by a car or he's going to, it's cold out here. So there we go, running after him. As soon as this is like me grabbing his hand, his wrist. This is how big this guy was. Like, this is me putting my little hand on him. Yeah. As soon as I did that, the scuffle was on. And thank God he wasn't actively trying to, like, fight us. It was just like a struggle. So there we are in the middle of winter night with a naked guy. Yeah, and the mom in the background. Oh my God, don't hurt my son. And we're just like, oh my God. So we must have like scuffled with this guy trying to get him in handcuffs. Like I put one handcuff on, I'm holding to the other one, just scuffling. It's two of us. Yeah. And this guy is huge, and his strength was like not normal. Yeah. So that made us think more of like must be on some drug. And finally, we look at each other. We have him we're still like on the ground, but we have him contained. Like have him a little bit calmer. And I'm like, hey, I'm tired. And because we're still new, we didn't want to be like, oh, these guys on their first call, they need help, Right.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah,
there.
and my academy mate, he's like, his CrossFit, he's like ex-Army, like, he was the top of the class. So he was probably too prideful as well to go ask for help, you know? So finally we're like, I look at him, I'm like, hey, I'm tired. Like, we need help. We need something else. But anyways, I told him, man, I'm tired. He's like, yeah, me too. And I was like surprised that he said me too. He's like, yeah, me too. I'm exhausted.
He's like, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, probably. So finally, he's like, he gets on the radio. He's like, hey, we need backup. And it was the funniest thing because later, the story afterwards was that everyone heard him say that, like, we need help. Oh, really? And for him to say that he needs help, it was like, oh, must be really bad. So we heard like the sirens coming. Yeah. It was like the best noise on the world. We're like, oh, finally.
But that was like after the fact, you guys already had everything under control, it sounds like, right?
We had it like contained, but we still didn't have them like fully handcuffed. Okay. So it was going to be an endless, like they're on the scuffle on the street and, and the moms, the family came out, neighbors are probably starting to like, what's that noise? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So finally we get him, it took like 5-6 officers to get him in handcuffs and we transported him to the hospital, another like 15 people in the room. Yeah. Just given his strength, he was like trying to fight everything to calm him down. Well, anyways, turns out he was on PCP. Oh wow! And the mom was still in denial. Yeah. she got the results from the doctor, and she's like, "Oh, you got it wrong. Like that's not my son." Jeez. And we're like, okay.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, just you walking me through that story. There's a lot of like limitations of what you can do, and trying to decide like which way to de-escalate the situation. It's tough. Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation where you have had to call for backup and then it seems like it takes forever for backup to come, or how does that usually happen?
So it kind of usually, if you ask, like, say, for example, if I'm on a traffic stop and I kind of know the person or suspect the person's got something like drugs or weapons, or they're just really nervous and I ask for a backer, Usually we know, we don't run code or anything, but other officers know, like, hey, it might be something where it needs 2 people there.
Okay.
So we try to get there as fast and safely as possible.
So even before you call for backup, there could be people getting prepared or headed your way just because of what you've called in?
So usually it kind of depends, like during the night shift, usually if someone calls out a traffic stop and you're not busy and you're in the area, you kind of just, it's just normal to swing by, you know.
Okay.
Just as 2 is better than 1.
Definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the biggest adjustment of going from Las Cruces to Oklahoma?
Oh gosh. Probably the Mexican food.
The food? Yeah.
The food. There's no good Mexican places.
Yeah.
Only a couple of select few.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been the biggest challenge or what?
Yeah, that, and I guess the weather. Like I said, I wasn't used to the tornadoes. I actually had to work during a tornado that hit nearby, and I was like freaking out.
Oh man. So you're having to like drive in the bad weather and stuff like that?
Yeah. So
or?
you still drive, and then you have your dispatch or whatever telling you, hey, it's going south, whatever.
Yeah. Jeez.
Stay clear from this area. Yeah. And
What
there's a
was-
lot of fallen trees. There's a lot of stuff that you have to like kind of.
Yeah. What was
Watch
that
out for.
like? What were you thinking at the time?
I was like, oh my God.
You're like super close to a tornado or what?
I wasn't. It was, I think, passing by the city.
Okay.
But it was still pretty bad weather.
Yeah.
Where we had like fallen trees, you know, traffic hazards and all this other stuff
Okay.
going on. But yeah, I think one of the times I was still kind of like didn't know my directions, you know. I was still in the working geography.
Yeah.
So they said it was coming south, whatever, and I was like, I think that's by my house. And I,
Oh, no.
yeah, I told my sergeant, I was like, can I go get my dog and bring him up here and my daughter or whatever? And he's like, yeah, you do what you gotta do. So I remember like it was the funniest thing because I got all my dogs and stuff and I brought them to the station or like the jail. It's a secure building.
Okay.
And then it was like over within like not even a minute, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it already passed," and there I am with my dogs and stuff.
Hey,
in the
better
back.
safe than sorry, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I totally understand that. What about being? You know, you said you moved to this new place. You didn't have any friends, any family. What was that like? You know, completely new city, completely new job. Everything's new. Was that pretty
it
tough?
was-
What'd you do?
Yeah, it was hard. Like, just pretty much my academy mates were the ones that I talked to all the time
Okay.
because we did the whole thing together, the academy and the field training. We were kind of going through the same thing, except I was from out of state. So,
Yeah. So you kind of became more like a family that way, probably, right?
yeah, usually the academy, your class is like the people that throughout your career will hold you accountable, make sure you do good, make sure you don't,
Yeah.
you know, start having bad habits, you know, so.
Okay. So we talked about sort of like a dangerous type situation. Do you have an example of maybe like a funny or you know something that happened that was like, okay, should they have really called me out for this or any
Oh, no,
like
there's a lot of them.
where you're like, okay, you called me out here for this? Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of them. The most petty one I remember is a neighbor dispute between one neighbor having a cat, and the neighbor called saying that they caught their neighbor on their Ring doorbell bringing like a baggie of cat poop and setting it on their sidewalk
and then
or on the
putting,
front porch.
putting it on fire or what?
No, they just
Okay.
like left it there.
That's usually how the prank goes. You put the bag and then you set it on fire, and then that way they have to stomp on it and they get poop all over it.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. But yeah,
I'm
got
sorry, I
there.
was a bad kid growing up.
Oh my God. Yeah, so they caught him on their Ring, and they wanted to know what, like they wanted to file a report on it, and I was like thinking like, what? I don't even know what crime
Right,
type
like,
this
what
is.
do
Like
you-
what is? It's just a like, you know,
Yeah.
go put it back on there. I mean, I don't know, like what it.
Yeah.
So I had to like pretty much play babysitter or like not babysitter, but you know, go talk to one person like,
Right.
hey, did you go put poop
Is
on
this
your?
poop
Yeah.
yours?
Did you go
Do you
put-
recognize this?
Yeah, because I guess the neighbor was upset that the neighbor's cat would come poop on their yard all the time and they wouldn't pick it up. And then
Yeah.
the neighbor was saying, that's not even my cat. It's a neighborhood cat. I don't even know. So I was like, oh my God. And then he was like asking me, well, is it illegal if I make him go viral with my Ring camera with this footage? I'm like, sir, you can do whatever you want. Like,
Jeez. So that like
Yeah.
tied you up for some silly reason. Right?
yeah. I was like, oh my God, are you serious?
What about the most rewarding? Has there ever been like a rewarding where you
Mm.
got called and you got to like, you know, do something really cool that you're like, okay, this is why I signed up to be in law enforcement?
Yeah, I've had a couple of them. One of them it was a call at a Taco Bueno or something. It was a guy that was passed out.
Okay. I thought you were going to
so
say
okay.
they gave me free Taco Bell.
No, that's a different story. No. Yeah, so he was passed out, and so I'm first on. I'm like, it's right there, almost first on scene. The girlfriend was like, I don't know what happened to him. He whatever. I kind of like noticed his arms had like track marks.
Yeah.
So I assumed it was drugs. She was denying everything, and she wasn't too helpful. You know,
Yeah.
Obviously she was scared that we were gonna get in trouble. But he was pretty much already getting a little blue. You know, he was already like close to being dead.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So he wasn't breathing. He, pretty much didn't have a pulse anymore.
Yeah.
So I did the Narcan, which is like the reversal for any, drug overdose.
Is that like a injection type thing, or how do you?
It used to be an injection, but now they have the nasal sprays.
Okay.
So they're really easy to use. Like just put them up the nostril, and that usually revives them pretty quickly.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're able to save that guy's life potentially, right?
Yeah. So I did a couple Narcan, and the EMS was still on the way, and I kind of did like sternal rubs, and then like I was gonna start to do the CPR, right? But then the ambulance arrived. We took him out of the car, and the lady at the paramedic told me that I saved his life pretty much. Like he was already he wasn't gonna do too well without that.
Yeah.
Right away. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one. And just like, I think with my like knowing Spanish, just being able to help Hispanic people that don't know like their rights here. A lot of people, they're scared to even report a crime just because they think that, they're going to get deported. They don't have papers. They're going to get in trouble. I remember we had a lady this last time go around, and she said she would cry when she would get pulled over.
Oh, wow.
She would just get like anxiety, and
Yeah,
I don't know, I can't remember what country she's from, but I had a few people tell me that their experiences back in their countries was awful, like compared to here.
Yeah, because a lot of countries, there's briberies. They take advantage of that power situation, right?
Well, and a lot of times they just like steal their stuff, or like they, get them out of the vehicle. They, whatever. So she was really scared, and someone told her to come take our class. She could learn a lot, and it was kind of like rewarding to see her grow. Like she cried on the first day of the class. She was even scared to sit in the front by us.
Wow. Okay.
So our first day of the class, we usually do introductions, kind of talk about the police department,
What type of class? So let's rewind a little bit. Like, is this a program that you're involved with, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a program through our agency that kind of is for community engagement and like to educate the public.
Is it specifically for Spanish-speaking community?
So we have English, the English one, and we just did, this is the second year we've done the Spanish one.
Okay, cool.
So I work with another officer. He's the coordinator. He gets all the students. He, gets a curriculum. Then I translated all the curriculum, and then we have different instructors from various, like, departments, like the traffic unit, CSI unit, street crimes, different detectives. I teach the domestic violence portion, and then the traffic stops and building searches.
Okay.
So all that stuff, it's like 8 weeks course, and this lady, she was scared. So the first couple classes, we do like introduction of the PD. We introduce ourselves, and a lot of them are shocked that we have regular lives, that we're not like robots. They just see us like
sure, they just see the uniform, right? Like.
So usually we include a PowerPoint on ourselves, like we have hobbies. The other officer, he's like did bull riding.
Okay, cool.
Just kind of like relates to them. They're like, oh, well.
I'm curious what you put as your hobbies, or what did you put sort of?
No, so my hobbies are just like hiking.
Okay.
Hiking trips. I don't know.
So you're like more outdoorsy. Like
a little bit.
You enjoy
traveling.
All that. Okay, cool. All right, we can continue.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, like that lady was shocked. She was like, oh my God, like they're not out to get me. They're like human like me. We have, we even talk about our struggles. Like, we want them to know what we do and that we also have struggles. Like, and there's a lot of times where seeing some of the stuff like on the streets, like the child abuses, deaths, bad car accidents.
Yeah.
Murders, assaults. That kind of gets to you sometimes, and that's what people didn't understand. They're like, they just saw us as like robots. We have the same emotion, no emotions, just giving out people tickets.
Right. Yeah.
Not cutting brakes on the tickets. So yeah, it was like that lady now. So by the end of the class, we saw her transform from being like scared of police to she now attends our meetings. She's very involved now in her community.
The actual relationships, right? Like the way that they view you,
Yeah.
like you said, like you're not just some robot or some bad person that's out to get them, right? Like you're human too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they have that in English as well.
Okay.
And then they have the Spanish one. And then we have the Junior Police Academy for kids that are interested in, learning more as well.
Cool. Yeah. So what other programs besides that are you involved with? I know you said that, you always get called for Spanish stuff. And even like, you said you have to be on like TV interviews and stuff like that. So
yeah, I've been on a few. It's just pretty much to get the word out on our Spanish Police Academy since it was so fairly new.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the first one we did, it was like over, I want to say between 40 and 50 students showed up. To where the next one we did, this last January, we had to expand it 8 weeks because people were like staying an hour. The classes were like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
They were wanting to stay for like an extra hour.
Oh wow!
Just
to
asking,
like talk, and ask questions.
Yeah, talking, asking questions. So it was like a good turnout. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Have you ever had to attend like a career day at a school or something? Like I bet you would be like the best guest like for that. Like,
I know. I haven't been invited by my kid, unfortunately.
Okay. Because that would be cool, right? Like you go to career day and like, here's my dad. He's an accountant or something. And all the kids are like, okay, crickets. But here's like my mom. And, she's a police officer. Like all the kids would go crazy like
that. Usually when like we go to calls to schools, all the kids, they gravitate towards you and like, what is that for? What is this for?
Right.
Like,
can I sit in the car? Can I turn on the siren? Right. Yeah. That's cool.
So we do have like a special unit for the schools.
Okay. All right. Cool. What would you say are some of your career goals? Like, like 5 years down the road or something like that? Like, or do you think that you love what you do so much right now that you just kind of want to continue what you're doing?
I think like eventually I would like investigations to do something like drug enforcement or just regular investigations. Because on patrol, you pretty much do the initial contact and the initial reports, but then you don't get to see the end result. I think I've only had a couple of my own cases that I've taken that like later I do a follow-up or I'm able to get more information or recover stolen property or whatever.
God. Okay.
But it's like time constraint on your shift. It's like you can't do that. Like the detectives, it gets forwarded to the detectives and they have more time to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Have you ever had a turnaround story where maybe you had an encounter where somebody they ended up getting their life straightened out and they're like, okay.
Yeah. I have had a few of those, but then I'm like, I don't recognize them.
Oh, really?
Like I'll be in uniform and then I'll walk somewhere and they'll be like, hey, I know you. And I'm like, always like, oh my God.
You're like, oh, where's this going to go?
Yeah.
It could go good or bad, right?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, who is this guy? Or like, where did I know them from? Yeah. Like, did I give him a ticket? Did I arrest him? I don't like, we deal with so many people sometimes.
Definitely.
This guy, he was I guess he was a drug addict. I had arrested him at some point. And I believe it was his dad I ran into. And I also him at some point. And he was like, the dad's like, hey, I know you. Yeah, you arrested my son. He's doing so much better now. Like, thank you for taking him in that night. He really needed that.
Yeah.
So. Wow.
Cool. And then he straightened out and he's doing a lot better.
Yeah, from what I heard, I don't know.
Okay. Very cool. So is that ever a challenge? You said that they recognize you out in public. Like, is that ever like a concern where you're like, out in the public and you could, possibly have an encounter with somebody that, didn't go so well?
I haven't had that problem too much. I think I had maybe that problem twice.
Okay.
One time I was, my daughter was still little. She was like maybe 7. Usually, after work, I try to take off my uniform as soon as possible. But I think this was on the way or something. And it was easier for me to, go to the store real quick.
Stay in uniform.
Yeah. So, went to the store. I was getting a red box. And I was like, kind of like already off duty or whatever, so I wasn't paying much attention. I should have been,
Yeah.
but I was like more focused on getting the movie, hurry up and get home. And it was funny because my daughter, she was like, "Mom, there's a bad guy."
Oh no.
And like, so I look up and like there's a guy, like obviously like he's anti-law enforcement. You could tell like the vibe. He was just looking at me kind of weird.
Yeah.
And he's walking out of the store and like he's just staring at me, and I'm like, do I know that guy? Like, I don't know what's going on. So I just say, "Oh, hello." Like, it usually surprised him. Like he just said hi or whatever, but left. And I was like, "Oh, thanks, babe. Like, you saved."
Yeah.
Like, thanks for being like, she already had like the vigilance, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So
Shout out to her.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So tell me, for anybody that's looking to get into law enforcement, what would be some tips there? I know, especially coming from a Hispanic family, right? Like there's probably like, don't go into that. It's very dangerous, that sort of thing. Like,
I think I got that from my mom.
Your mom? Yeah.
My mom more than my dad.
Okay.
My mom was like,
I would have thought the opposite. I would have thought that your dad, like,
no, my mom, she was like, "Ay, es que está muy peligroso." She was always scared.
Yeah.
So the funny part, they came to visit me one time, and we do ride-alongs.
Oh, okay.
So where you can come, bring, a friend or family or somebody from the public that's interested, you ride along with you.
Okay.
So my mom, I had to beg her.
She was scared
She
to
was
ride
scared.
along?
She was scared to ride along. She's like, "No, I don't even like that stuff. I don't like guns. I don't like," she was just scared. And I was like, "No, you have to see," because she would always be so like nervous when I would go.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, understandably,
yeah.
right? Like she's worried about you. Yeah.
So like she went on the ride along with me, and the first call, it was a suspicious person on a 2-lane road, and he's like walking out in the middle of the street. He's possibly on drugs. So my mom, she's like, "Oh my god!" Like she's like, "Be careful." She's like, "Be careful. Like I don't want you to, be careful with this guy." She was all like super nervous. So I see the guy. He's like, it's a 2-lane road. Like there's there's nowhere to walk. Like it's a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
Like there's limited space where he was walking, and he was a little shaky. So I stop him. And my mom's like, "Oh, be careful." Like she's still like all super nervous, like, "Be careful."
Oh no.
So normal like interaction with the guy, he ended up having multiple sclerosis. And that's why he was walking.
Okay.
Weird.
All right.
He was a like elderly guy, but she was so scared. And like after that, like I ran his information, he had
Everything
zero,
was fine. Yeah.
not even a traffic ticket.
Yeah.
He was just like the upstanding citizen, and he was just walking to the store.
And you're like, "See, Mom?"
Yeah, and so that was a perfect example that
Yeah.
I got to say to her, like, "Hey, it's not everything's bad,
Right.
It's just normal." So like I offered him a ride. He said, "Yeah." So there we are, me driving my mom. It was the funniest.
Is she like silent like the entire ride? No.
So
Okay.
I told my mom before, I was like, "Oh, he's walking to the store, Mom, like whatever." And then it was funny because at the end of the ride, they're like, my mom's like, "Where are you from? Where do you live?
No
you
way.
like it? You like it here?"
That's
like
awesome.
in her Mexican accent,
Yeah.
And so we dropped him off, and I was like, "See, I told you." And then my dad was complete opposite. My dad was like, "Oh, let's go arrest that. Like, you need to get into some stuff today."
Oh no.
Yeah, he
was
so
like
excited.
looking forward to like action.
He was
right?
like, "Yeah, let's go stop with something, whatever."
So what would be your tip then? You said that the ride-alongs kind of help. So is there a way for people to be a part of that without being an actual part of the academy, or what?
Yeah. So tips if you want to get into law enforcement would probably definitely start getting into shape. That way you don't have to worry about that part.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't have a criminal record or anything like that. So stay off, questionable friends or whatever. And then, we offer ride-alongs. Like most departments offer ride-alongs. Most departments have a recruiter you could talk to.
Do they offer internships? Is there any kind of internships?
Yeah, some departments do offer like volunteer work.
Okay.
Some people that were in our academy volunteer at the police department just to kind of, participate with the community and the law enforcement officers. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, I always ask my guests to tell me something about themselves that most people don't know about. So I'm going to put you on the spot here to share something that most people don't know about you.
I guess most people don't know that I like to sing.
Oh,
I
really?
won't sing for anybody. I'm not going to sing
We're
here.
about to, I'm about to pull up the karaoke track right here.
No, I like to sing, and then I like to paint and like draw. So.
Okay, cool. So that artistic side is still there, it sounds like.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. You've ever pursued that? Do you ever do paintings or anything as a side, like a...
As a hobby, but not like actually sold anything or anything.
Okay.
My last one was a Frida Kahlo like self portrait. So it was like
really?
Frida Kahlo style, but me.
Yeah,
like it's a self portrait.
that's cool. Do you ever post that at all, or no? You never
I
really
don't
share
remember
that?
if I don't think I posted it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So, can you sing,
Oh,
or
no.
you only sing like you
Here's
just
the thing.
enjoy?
I think I sing good. Other people are like,
Yeah, okay.
But I did have at one point that app, that singing app, wherever you, can't remember what it's called now,
Yeah.
but I have
Okay.
a few songs on there.
So karaoke night, you're ready. You're
Yeah.
bringing the heat. Is what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. So we talked about sort of like your career ambitions. So what are some of your personal goals or anything that you think you want to tackle down the road?
Personal
You said you like to
goals.
travel. You like to be
Yes.
outside.
So I like to travel, but something that I'm scared of is flying,
Oh, really? Okay.
which is
That's not a good combination.
I know it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
So I am all for road trips. Like I
Yeah.
can drive long hours. I don't care.
Yeah.
But that's I have to tackle the fear of getting on a plane. I have done
Mm-hmm.
it before. I've gone to like Brazil, and it was like 20.
That's a long flight.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
20 something, and I actually didn't sleep the night before.
On
Thinking
purpose.
on purpose, so I
Yeah.
could sleep on the flight, and it didn't work. It turned out worse.
You
I
were
was
like up
I was
the
like
entire
this.
time?
I was like, oh, no.
Wow. Yeah. There's
But-
got to be a way to get over that, I would think.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
I also like kind of want to skydive. So
Okay, I'm not seeing a way. So you're
Yeah.
afraid to fly, but jumping out of the plane is on the list.
well, I'm not scared of heights. That's the thing. It's so weird.
Okay.
So like I've done what is that other thing called, ziplining? I've done ziplining from like higher heights.
Yeah.
And obstacle courses I've done.
Mm-hmm.
But like just and getting on the plane, I'm not scared of heights. It's just the actual flying. I maybe like the mechanics of something going wrong.
Yeah.
Is like my mind's always thinking like, oh, safety reasons of why something can go wrong.
Yeah. To me, I think the challenge is that I'm not in control, right? So if I'm driving a car and I know there's a turn coming up, or if I'm going to have to hit the brakes or whatever,
Yeah.
I know that I'm in control, right? But a plane, if all of a sudden it has to go up in elevation, down elevation, I don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
right? So I remember the first flight I took, you hear all the sounds and you're like, is that
Oh,
sound
yeah.
normal? Like you hear the little like pops or
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm talking about? It's like,
Yeah.
is that supposed to happen? Or even the wheels going up and down. I'm like, is that
Yeah.
normal? Did the wheels just fall off? Like what just happened?
Yeah, that's for me. It's partly that, but also like the 9/11, like the shoe bomber, and all like
Yeah.
the security issues at the airport. Like
Yeah.
I just don't trust people on like bringing stuff on the plane. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh god.
It is
Did
tough.
they really do a good security check here? 'Cause,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that I ask my guests that I've started doing recently is if I were to pull up your playlist, who would I find? Like what are some of the bands or some of the artists? What kind of music are you into?
Right now, I like Carol G.
Okay.
Bad Bunny obviously is a popular one. Luis Miguel. I mean the classics, I guess.
Yeah.
John Sebastian, all those.
Okay.
I'm not really too much into country, but I have listened to it.
Just because you've been forced now that you're in Oklahoma or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
So you listen to both English and Spanish?
English and
or-
Spanish, yeah.
Okay. Besides country, who would I find on your playlist?
Country, probably just reggaeton. It's kind of funny. Sometimes, like, to work, I'll play on, like, the most rap music in Spanish.
Driving to work?
Yeah, like, talking about violence and stuff.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
but it's funny.
Are you allowed to listen to music while you're like driving in the car, or no?
Yeah, so, like,
Yeah?
you can listen to whatever you want in your car.
Okay.
I know a lot of people, like law enforcement officers, that listen to like gangster rap and stuff too
Really?
when they're like working out or like it's
Well,
kind of funny.
yeah.
Like some of the words are like F12, F
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, definitely.
So it's kind of funny.
Okay. I just didn't know if like you're in your patrol car, you're on duty, are you supposed to be in complete silence? Or I guess as long as
no.
you don't have anybody with you, or I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I mean, you can play whatever music you want. I mean, if you have obviously someone that's from the public, you don't want to be playing that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It looks kind of bad, but
But like, do you like turn it down? Like, do you ask them, hey, do you prefer South Rock? Or
oh, speaking of that, I had a suspect one time. He was he was a claimed rap artist.
Oh, really?
I had arrested this guy. I forgot for what.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Let's hear some of your stuff, man.
No way.
Yeah. And he was like, started rapping in the back of my car.
No way.
And it was actually pretty good that I was like, I wanted to record it, but I was like, man, I don't know if I like.
Yeah, it's probably not
yeah,
enough.
yeah, I don't want to like make him famous and then like, where'd
Yeah.
you get this recording from, you know?
Yeah.
But it was pretty good.
That's funny.
Yeah.
There was for a while, it was trending where different police academies were dancing.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
on TikTok and
yeah.
stuff like that. Did you guys ever do that? Or?
Yeah, I think at one point we had a public information officer slot, and he did a dance. I forgot what the song was, like a country song, but he got
course.
so many hits on that.
There was a guy that used to sing too. He became like viral. He was a police
from Las
officer.
Cruces, yeah.
He was like singing, right?
I think from Las Cruces,
Yeah.
he quit to become a country singer.
Oh, he quit. Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I think he
Wow.
was like 10-year officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I forget his name, but
Cool. All right. So I think one of the other things that I want to ask you is maybe like, being a police officer, like what are some of the career options after a while? If you're like, okay, maybe you mentioned you want to go into investigations, like what other type of like career paths can somebody follow there?
So it just kind of depends on what your interests are. Like a lot of people go into, so each police department has different divisions. There's like administration, there's the patrol division, there's, you can go up in ranks if you want to become a sergeant or supervisor, you know, captain. There's most police stations have like a street crimes unit or a gang unit if you want to do that kind of work, undercover stuff.
Okay.
Detectives is a major one. Within detectives, there's investigating different crimes, like crimes against children, property crimes, domestic people crimes. That includes all the domestics and assaults and all that. There's also people get into the CSI crime scene unit. That's obviously a whole different additional training. Lots of you don't deal with as much alive people. It's mostly dealing with dead people, so you have to have a certain
that's tough.
certain I guess niche that you want to pursue.
Yeah. Do you ever lose faith in people and because you get to see people at their worst moments, right? It's never like, hey, come hang out, everything's great, just stop by to say hi.
Yeah,
right?
very few times we've had that, but it's not that I've lost faith. It's just kind of like sometimes it gets I don't know, like you kind of like think everything is like the same.
Yeah.
Like say for example, if I deal with the same person over and over and over and over, and then I get a different call where it's completely similar issue but completely different person, that's something that we as officers need to work on, because sometimes you take the perception from the old call to the new one and you try to deal with that person in the same way you dealt with the other person. It doesn't always work because it's like different people, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of like just adjusting your mindset to that. But no, like I still have hope in people. I mean, for the most part, people do the right thing.
Yeah.
And
do you have like a gut feeling now that you are in law enforcement where you meet somebody, you kind of can read people better?
Yeah. Definitely. Like there's always I think you have to have kind of like the gut feeling to keep yourself safe and then to keep others safe.
Yeah.
But a lot of time, well, obviously officer safety is like kind of like one of the major things that like they talk about in the academy. Obviously just not for you, but like so many officers are getting killed in traffic stops and like calls. So
yeah,
that's something really important, obviously.
Okay. Is there anybody else that you know of in your family that was ever a police officer or in law enforcement in any way? Or are you like the first one from the family?
No, I think I'm the first one.
Yeah. That's cool.
I can't really think of anybody. I know I've had uncles in the military, like in Mexico, but no, not police officer. So
okay, that's cool. That's something that like a legacy there for your family that you know like the first one to be in law enforcement. That's pretty cool.
I think my dad's probably the one that cares about that stuff the most. He's like very supportive. My mom is too, but she's more scared.
Yeah.
She's like still doesn't understand it.
Even till this day, you think she still worries a lot about you?
Yeah, I think she still worries about me, obviously, but she'll now that she's gone on the ride along, she kind of like understands it a little bit more. And now I'll tell her some of the crazy stories, whereas before she'd be like, like she would have a really strong reaction, and now
Yeah.
she's like, oh, like gente loca.
That's it.
Yeah.
So tell me about, you said you're working in a master's in criminal justice at Northeastern State University,
Yeah.
right? So tell me about that.
So
you know.
I'm about halfway done. It's kind of hard because like with all, full-time job and, I still do my part-time with the linguist. So every once in a while they'll have a big case and I'll have to help them support on that case.
Do you have to go to court and stuff like that for that, or?
Yeah, you can get subpoenaed for court.
Okay.
I've never needed to go just because usually the evidence is already there, even before that type of investigation that we do, which is the wiretaps. That's like,
Okay.
before you get to that point, there has to be a warrant enough to write that to be able to do a wiretap.
Yeah.
So pretty much the suspects in those cases are already like bought and paid for. Like the evidence is more than sufficient, where usually by the time it goes to court, they make a plea deal or, whatever.
Yeah. So the pursuing of the master's, is that just kind of to further your career, or?
No, it's just kind of for me, like personal to gain.
Okay.
We covered most of the stuff in the academy, but it's almost like a snippet of what would have been a master's.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just for my own personal, education. I think is really important.
Awesome.
Just keep
Yeah.
continuing
Definitely.
to learn. You can always learn something new.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of personal growth and like staying,
Yeah.
up to date, learning new things. Like I
Yeah.
always try to teach myself new things, so that's pretty cool. I would say, like, going forward, you mentioned that there was an age cap, right, to be able to be a police officer. Is that because the retirement age is like a little bit like before normal retirement, or is it like the normal retirement?
It's 20 years before you can retire.
Okay.
So I know for federal agencies as well, there's a cutoff. It's like 37, just because of the pension. Their pension's different, so you have to do 20 years with them, I believe.
Got it.
So yeah, it's mostly, I guess, for that reason. Because I've seen some 45, 48-year-olds. I mean, some of the guys at our department are pretty fit for their age. Like, they could push out like close to 80 push-ups under a minute.
Yeah.
They're really in really good shape. So
Yeah. I would say I've seen the extremes. It's never in the middle. It's always the guy that's always in the gym and the guy that you can tell is like really out of shape. Is that like you have to be like just by yourself? You have to be mindful of that? Like there's no requirement, or what?
So some agencies have requirements like an annual PT test. Like mine doesn't.
Okay.
But usually I think you're going to get bullied. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
You're like, oh, did you see so-and-so? Like ever since he went back to detectives,
Oh,
he
no.
hasn't, he eats too much donuts back there or whatever,
Yeah. So you
So
just
it's
like
like-
do it. I guess it's also for your own safety too, right? Like
Yeah, so
you want to be in
usually-
shape.
Yeah, so usually we have a training every so often on like defensive tactics and stuff, but everything else is out on your own. And most of the guys at the PD anyways, they do some kind of sport or some kind of, one of my coworkers, he does baseball, another one does jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Cool.
So like, different physical stuff. And plus on the job, we're always out and about.
Yeah.
So like, even if you did the minimal, like gym wise, you still kind of like survive. But when the time comes that you need to be in that fight, like you need to be in shape.
Or a sprint.
You need,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Does the academy there have a gym for you guys, or do you have to like go to a
no.
gym on your own?
No, there's several gyms. There's one at the jail. There's one at the police department, and then there's one at the academy. So and it's free. So
Okay.
you can use it. A lot of people use it before work, before there's lockers. You could take your stuff. So it's very convenient.
Awesome. Cool. So we are getting the signal here that we hit our mark. So I'm going to open up to you if you want to share any tips or anything, or, maybe what the community can do to sort of like get to know their local police enforcement better, right? Because you mentioned how important that is. What would you sort of recommend to people if, they have that fear, especially, if they're not really familiar with, the role of law enforcement and how it works. And like you said, they're afraid that,
Yeah, I guess just for like in general, there's a lot of whole different topics, but like for parents to be more involved in their kids, now with like access to social media and all these different platforms, it's so much easier for a predator to access your kid in their own home.
Yeah.
We get a lot of those calls, we're getting a lot of calls on like juveniles, like, you know, sending the news and then they get posted, they get bullied at school.
Yeah.
So a lot of those like new crimes that are like surfacing and the laws are still kind of behind a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there's a few laws that protect people from like, you know, someone posting, you know, revenge porn and all that, or, you know, nudes. But like a lot of parents don't know about keeping their kids safe on electronics devices. So that's one thing I want to say. And then another thing is probably just in general, like get to know your laws and like get involved like in your, you know, in your cities, because there's a lot of people that don't get involved, and then a law passes and then kind of like the after effects are worse than the actual law. Yeah.
And also I think it's important if people do have a passion to maybe get into law enforcement, because having representation and diversity in law enforcement is awesome, right?
Yeah,
like,
and now there's like such a shortage on police officers, obviously, because the whole tension across the nation. But I mean, it's a rewarding job. Every day is different. Like you do get the opportunity that not most people have, is to like change someone's life, or, you know, when someone needs you. And it's a whole variety of calls. Like I've had calls from like domestics, you know, assaults, child abuse, like a whole different range of topics that we get, financial crimes, frauds. Like it's just interesting that every day is different. So
yeah, that's awesome. Cool. I would say maybe just to wrap it up, can you sort of walk us through like a typical day? Do you have to go into the office? Is it always out in the field?
Yeah, so normally,
like walk us through a typical day.
Typical day is squad meeting. It's usually 15 minutes long. You have to go to station for it.
Okay.
And it's a meeting with your squad. So pretty much what has happened the day before, anything good that we did the day before, anything to watch out for, areas that we need to keep an eye on, any bulletins or any like, you know, neighboring crime bulletins that we need to be aware of.
Okay.
Kind of like information between us. They give us our sheet, which shows like a map and the district's different beat sections. I'm usually in one of the busier districts with the beat partner. He said he was going to tune in, so hopefully.
Oh, awesome. Shout out. Yeah. Very cool. Also, if anybody else wants to be a guest, we welcome them. So.
Yeah, I made a joke yesterday because I was like, man, I'm gonna be in my a podcast tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I told him, because he's like, what? And like he didn't know about it. And I was like, we're beat buddies. We're together like the whole shift, you know, working together. Yeah. So I made a joke. I was like, yeah, we can be like stepbrothers, and you can come in with me. And you could be the guy next to me. And just be like,
definitely. That'd be awesome. Maybe next time we have you on the podcast, it could be both of you.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I know you're super busy. You're always having to work, and you have night shift, day shift. Like, you know, I bet your schedule's crazy. Yeah. So I want to thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Melissa Medrano on the Maverick podcast. Keep grinding, because in the dream we trust.